Hey, greetings, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the People's Power Hour in Lukman Nation here on Black Power Media. If that's where you're watching, either on Lukman Nation, if that's where you're watching, on Facebook on Lukman Nation, if that's where you're watching, or Facebook or Twitter on Black Power Media, if that's where you're watching, or on Twitch, I believe, on Black Power Media there. Appreciate you. Very glad that you are here tonight. Let me make sure all of my audio is good. I think it is. What's going on, everybody? Very glad to see you. We made it to the end of another week, y'all. Just barely. There's so much going on. A lot of stuff happening this week. Obviously, always, all the time, me and my kidneys are having issues. Just, the regular stuff, appointments and all this kind of stuff that I have to perpetually have more medical procedures and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so there's more of that. But, woo, there's been a lot going on in the political, social sphere also. And I wanted to make sure I talked about this issue before things kind of got away from me with other things that I have to do, actual organizing, because I do that. So that's why we're having this show tonight. And so before we get to it, let me say hello to all of our friends in the chat. Yeah, okay. That first comment, I just had something snarky to say before I even started the show. I hadn't even said nothing, and here come folks with the comments. Quaker Anarchist, what's going on? Comrade Kwame, 40 J Blaze, Franny French, Leah Boggs, Marley Gordon, Devil's Advocate. I see your question. I'm gonna get to it. Sugar Sham, NUJSG, the Oracle at Delphi, Manny Nile. Hey, y'all, what's up? Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, let's get into this conversation, shall we? So, for those of you who don't know me, don't know about me, don't know what I do when I'm not doing this, I am an organizer, and I am an organizer along the Black radical tradition, not started, but carried on by Dr. King in addressing the triple evils of this society: racism, militarism, and poverty. But I'm also an anti-imperialist along the Black radical tradition of W.E.B. Du Bois and Mama Coretta Scott King, and others, Paul Robeson, Claudia Jones, others who came before them, who laid the foundation and the groundwork for not just anti-war organizing among Black people, but anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, anti-white supremacy, anti-US Western hegemony organizing that is all part of the Black radical tradition, and the focus on people-centered human rights, ensuring people-centered human rights for all people, particularly for the people most impacted by those systems: working class, poor, and oppressed, colonized Black folks, African descended folks all around the world in the diaspora, people in the global South, and African descended folks right here in the domestic colonies in the United States. So, when I talk about the left, I understand that this term practically doesn't have a real meaning anymore because there really is no left as a movement in this country. And there have been attempts through history to grow and mobilize the left. And I think when we really particularly look at the labor movement in the 30s and 40s, particularly the very radical labor organizing that was going on in the South among and between Black sharecroppers and Black workers and working class and poor whites, there was a moment in time where there was this working class unity across races, but even that had to be brought together by Black radical organizers like Harry Haywood, who had to remind the white working class who, even though they were in the same labor organization, the labor organization was segregated. So you had labor meetings where white uh, union organizers and union members were on one side of the building, and then the Black union members were on the other side of the building in another room, and the white folks made all the decisions, and they would send somebody into the room with the Black folks to tell them what decisions the white people made. And that's how, for a while, because labor unions were segregated just like this country for quite some time, until Harry Haywood, and forgive me if I can't remember which union it was. It may have been the AFL, the American Federation of Laborers, before it became AFL-CIO or AFL-CIA. Um, um, so there is Harry Haywood went to one of these organizing meetings, saw this foolishness, and says, "This is ridiculous. This doesn't make any sense. Why in the world are you separating yourself, first of all, like the capitalist bosses in the system that you want to challenge and overturn? And second, how in the world do you think you're going to challenge these people divided like this? Stop this. This needs to end." So that union ended its segregation policies for a while. And I learned all this and so a whole bunch of more stuff from this fantastic book written by Dr. Robin D. G. Kelly called Hammer and Hoe. And it is specifically about the radical organizing among working class and poor Black people in the South who were largely socialists and communists. Radical Black communist organizing in the South. Didn't learn anything about our connection to communist organizing that Black folks in the South, who folks thought were always so scared of the white man, anything but, any and everything but, were organizing using communist principles, applying those principles to their material conditions to organize not just for better wages and working conditions, but for better living conditions. So please get this book. The author's name is Dr. Robin D. G. Kelly, Robin. The name of the book is Hammer and Hoe. Exactly how it sounds. Hammer, Hammer, and Hoe, Hoe. Fantastic book. So I understand that we are a far cry. We are a far cry from that kind of organizing, as far as there being a left in the United States. There is a core of serious, dedicated, consistent, committed anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, people-centered human rights organizing going on in this country. And that is happening not only among working class, poor, and oppressed and colonized people, people of color, African descended people, trans, queer, disabled people, and working class and working class whites, and white folks who have committed class suicide and have committed to this struggle against capitalist dictatorship and U.S. Western hegemony. It exists. but it's not anywhere near the kind of mass movement mobilization that we need and that we have needed since the big, huge mobilizations against the Iraq War before it started. And if you've been following along this conversation that is had among the different factions of what could loosely be considered the left, when you talk to a lot of white people who consider themselves leftists, especially if they say they are anti-war, and they think that's what makes them leftists, you will hear a lot from a lot of these people that they don't want to talk about the connected ways that race and racism, white supremacy is connected to capitalism, class warfare, class antagonism, and why it is these sometimes very strong movements in organizing unity between working class Black folks and Black working class white folks never last in this country. There's always this magical moment where, okay, we got it. If you look at things like the labor organizing of the air traffic controllers before Reagan broke the PATCO union, that was Black and white organizers coming, workers coming together to fight for a common cause, and that was better working conditions, better pay, better rights for all of them, even as they were organizing in a union that had some racial and gender issues. So you had Black people, and that was actually the first time, y'all, that I realized that there were Black air traffic controllers. I did not, this was back in the, late 80s. And the first inclination that I had that air traffic controllers in this country were Black was the news coverage of the strikes that the air traffic controllers carried out. And then you see these Black people and you're like, I'll be damned. So then the PATCO union and the issues with race and gender looks a little different, and the brutal crackdown of the labor organizing of the PATCO union by the Reagan administration, then that takes on a whole different character too, right? Now that you realize there's a large contingent of Black people and women organizing in this union and working and doing it together with white people, that kind of stuff can't fly in this country. They hate that so much. They don't like organized workers in the first place. The powers that be in the system does not like educated and educated populace in the first place. But dear God, don't let Black folk and white folk realize that we are fighting working class Black folks and white folks and poor Black folks and white folks. Don't let us realize that we are fighting the same system, capitalism. And it is capitalism that is the unofficial official religion of this country and of all of the leaders. And they do whatever the capitalist bosses tell them to do, that we live in a capitalist dictatorship. We don't live in a democracy. That workers across the board have no rights. And that Black workers and Black women workers and queer and trans and disabled Black workers face additional discrimination on top of the class warfare carried out against us because we're working class, poor, and colonized. Oh dear God, don't let the whites and the Blacks figure out they got something in common and they got a common enemy and they're gonna work together to challenge their common enemy. What happens when that happens every time in history, y'all? What happens? The Red Scare comes up. Happens every time. Black folks can be advocating for integration, equal application of laws, equal treatment under the law, and the white power structure in this country will say begrudgingly, very begrudgingly, okay, fine. They will do it kicking and screaming, dragging their feet. But eventually they're like, fine, maybe we don't treat y'all fair. Okay, maybe we'll do a little something to shut y'all up. And that is quite literally what they do every single time, because they don't address any of the issues that are really at the foundation of our oppression, which is capitalist dictatorship, white supremacy, settler colonialism, patriarchy. But as soon as a segment of those Black people start realizing that, wait, maybe the issue isn't that white people just like, emotionally hate us. Maybe that's maybe this simplistic understanding of racism, maybe that's really not the problem. Maybe the problem is really capitalism and the way we are exploited for our labor. And all of the levels of exploitation that come in a capitalist system, where the people at the very top keep most of everything and the rest of us are fighting for crumbs. And then when Black and white people start to realize that the reason Black and white people don't organize together is because those folks at the top who keep everything, they are able to convince a pretty good segment of the working class white population that the problem is not the capitalist bosses, the problem is the niggas. The problem is the immigrants. The problem is the gays. The problem is the trans folks. You see what I mean? And when the white working class figures out that all of that they've been told about who their problem is, who causes their discontent and economic scarcity and their economic oppression, when they realize that what they've been told is all a lie, then they start realizing, wait, I have more in common with working class, poor and oppressed, colonized people of color, marginalized folks than I do with these bosses. Let me go over here and talk to them. And for the working class white folks who don't come to that conclusion themselves and are illuminated to that fact by working class, poor and oppressed and colonized Black folks who have figured it out, like the Black Panther Party did with the Rainbow Coalition, when Chairman Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party made it a point to explain to working class, poor white folks in Chicago that their problems stem from the same system that Black folks' problems, that working class, poor and oppressed Black folks' problems stem from. They have the same problems. Actually, Black folks just have an additional problem that's racial prejudice. That is, individual animus or racism or whatever backed up by power. Like white people with power have the ability to deny equal access and equal treatment to Black people. They have the power to do it. And I'm sure some of those white folks were dragging their feet about hanging out and organizing with some of those Black folks in Chicago. But here's the thing. When Chairman Fred Hampton formed the Rainbow Coalition, and they were willing to organize with some of these white folks who came up from Appalachia, who were members of the Young Patriot organization. Some of those folks were racist, voted, sporting the Confederate flag. Chairman Hampton said, look, we have the same enemy. Capitalism is our problem. We have the same problems. We should be organizing together. But here is the condition. This is key. Here's the condition to you, members of the Young Patriots, who have racist ideology or ideas. Not all of them did, but some did. Fred Hampton said, in order to be a part of this coalition, this Rainbow Coalition, you need to repudiate your racism. That was the requirement that was put before white people who saw that, yeah, we have the same class interests, and that's cool if I can get the boot off my neck by organizing with you, but Chairman Fred told those people that they had to go farther than just recognizing class allegiance. They had to deal with their racism in order to be a part of the Rainbow Coalition. So when I look through that little brief history, thank you, let me see if I can get this right. Viamar Adis Ogarwa. Please forgive me if I butchered that terribly. It was not my intention. I appreciate you pointing out the original Rainbow Coalition, not that thing that that Jesse Jackson created so he could get the nomination for the Democratic Party when he ran. The original Rainbow Coalition. So when I think about that history of true left organizing, where not only you struggle to understand that we have a common enemy, we have a common problem, or we have common problems, but our problems are also connected to the very same problems that other groups of people who are not like us face. That's the one requirement for struggling for principled unity among the actual anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, anti-white supremacist, anti-settler colonial left. Okay, you got me? There is that happening, and full disclosure, I am, for those of you who don't know, I'm a member of the Black Alliance for Peace. I'm a part of the leadership, but this show is not me speaking on behalf of the Black Alliance for Peace. I'm speaking as a working class Black person in solidarity with people who, let me back up and say this correctly, because let me be honest. I'm middle class. I'm a middle class Black woman who has committed class suicide and refuses to align my politics with the class that is the buffer class for upholding the capitalist system. And I have chosen instead to align my organizing and my solidarity with the working class, poor and oppressed, colonized folks in this domestic colony, which I live in, which regardless of whether I think I'm middle class or working class or poor, I am just aware enough to realize that that's what it is. And I'm saying all of this whole show is coming from my personal perspective as a person with these politics myself. I'm not representing any organization in this conversation, although organization is a key component of this conversation, because we always talk about the need for, some kind of unity. The left has to be rebuilt. We have to have unity. It's just some amorphous, nebulous term, unity, that really doesn't mean what people think it means, because you achieve unity through organizing with people. Let's go back to the Rainbow Coalition. Different groups of people, different ethnic makeups, seemingly on the surface, different political requirements and needs. But when they organized to examine all of their collective issues, they realized their point of unity, they all had the same points of unity. Common enemy, capitalism. Common problems, capitalist oppression that has racial oppression sprinkled in there to prop up the capitalist oppression and to keep it going. And then there's the common goal. Once they all realized that they had a common enemy and common problems, then they worked on a common goal to challenge their common enemy, to work toward improving the material conditions of the people in their communities. that are suffering from common problems, to work collectively together to do it in solidarity and in allegiance with each other, and to commit to raising the consciousness of the people in their communities who do not know yet what they have now found out through organization. That's how we achieve unity. You don't just wake up in the morning and say, I'll say what people like to say all the time. I'm rooting for everybody black. That's not. No, I'm not. I'm not. I am not rooting for everybody black. Jacqueline Luqman is not rooting for everybody black. I am not rooting for Lloyd Austin. I'm not rooting for Kamala Harris. I'm not rooting for the president of Howard University. I'm not rooting for the petit bourgeois, respectability politics, the oppressed have no morals, talking black middle class, the black buffer class. I'm not rooting for the Congressional Black Caucus. So no, unity is not something that you just concoct out of thin air because someone looks like you. No, unity, you achieve unity through organization. I hope y'all are with me so far. Because now I'm going to get into what I'm really pissed off about. Could you tell I'm a little pissed off about something? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Let me see what y'all's got to say in the chat before we move into the meat of the matter. I just think I really needed to lay down for those who this is the first time you're seeing Luqman Nation, first time you visited Luqman Nation, first time you've seen, heard me. I just really wanted to make clear that people know who I am, where I'm coming from, and what I believe. And that informs what I do. So I just wanted people to be clear on how I move. So this what I have to say is not coming out of left field. Okay. Thank you, Inuche, for saying the Young Patriots said they were trying to reclaim the Confederate flag as a symbol of rebellion and that the slavers in the South co-opted that. They definitely had to address racism. And, we can have discussions all day long about the validity of the first part of that. What was the Confederate flag? Were they right on, or accurate on their assessment on what the Confederate flag was? Could it have been reclaimed? I think, yeah, that's a valid argument to have. But the point that is not up for debate, that it was a requirement for members of the Young Patriots who were racist to repudiate that racism. They had to deal with that. They had to struggle with that, and they had to root it out and throw it away, or else we can't trust you to be a part of this coalition. All right? And this matters. This historical point about the original Rainbow Coalition matters in the way some in this amorphous, whatever it is, white left move in regard to dealing with racist white people on the right. Okay, but we're going to get there. So let's see. Let me see what else y'all got to say. Oh, y'all are introducing yourselves to each other and saying hello. Y'all are so great. I love y'all. I love my chat fam. I do. I love you so much. That's a great question. Don't let me forget it because I want to address that. Thank you. Let me see. Woo. So, all right. Thank y'all very much for your great engagement in the chat. Before I even get to the meat of the matter, I'm just sitting here spitballing and y'all just like having a great time. Thank you so much. Shout out to my girl, Karina Acri Paez. Thank you so much, Prima. Karina says also settlers who want to reform the United States, representing the political right and left, will quickly unite when they feel threatened. Woo, child. All right, let's go there then. Let's go there. Let's talk about it. This rally that the Libertarian Party has organized for February 19th called Rage Against the War Machine. And I can't believe I forgot to pull up that website. But here it is. If you have not heard of it, let me share this screen with you so you can see this foolishness for yourself. There it is. Rage Against the War Machine, anti-war rally, Washington, D.C., February 19th. Biggest day down here at the bottom, Libertarian Party and People's Party. Now, look, well, just full disclosure, I've been around this online, leftish, whatever it is, political space for a minute. And I have opinions about the People's Party and the folks that created it and the stuff that they had done. I try to be principled in the knowledge that I share about where the bodies are buried with some of these white folks. So I'm going to let them bones lie for right now. But there are bones. And yeah, there are bones. But anyway, the Libertarian Party is the issue here. But let's step through this and take our time with it. Because I'm looking at this rally and I'm genuinely confused about how folks who say they're somewhere on the left, whatever that could mean to them, are involved in. I'm confused about how they're involved in it at all. Confused, but not really, right? I understand, absolutely understand the need to revive and mobilize a strong, not just anti-war movement. It needs to be more than that. We need an anti-imperialist and people-centered human rights focused movement. So yes, I think it is true that sometimes we're going to have to organize with people, align in some way with people that we don't agree with 100% of the time on everything with. I think that is true. And I think that's just kind of a mature way to look at organizing, because if you don't agree with everything that people in your own family do, say, and believe, how do you think you're going to agree with every single thing people that you organize with? You're not. And on some level, that can be okay if you adhere to the principles, if you commit to principled struggle to bring clarity to those issues that you don't agree with, and that you are able to reach consensus on the issues that you do, that are important, that are more important than the disagreement, right? But I really have a problem with these people, the Libertarian Party, because the Libertarian Party is messy in the first place. And we'll get into why in a little bit. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Libertarian Party, I try not to assume that everybody knows everything about politics the way I'm like geeky, nerdy, wonky about finding out all the things. But I saw this page of the coalition and I saw these people and I was like, for real though? Them? When I first heard of the Mises Caucus, I actually didn't know they were a part of the Libertarian Party, but they are. And at this point, they are the Libertarian Party because they have taken the party over. And you can see that, you know, all of the sketchy-ish, but clearly kind of libertarian, right-leaning, not left, not anti-capitalist, not anti-imperialist organizations that are sponsors of this event. You can see that for yourself, right? That's a big old problem. Just if you don't know who the Mises Caucus is, that should be a big red flag. But and Lo, I'm sorry. Let me go back to sharing the screen because I do want to for you to see the demands that they make. Because if you were to look at the demands, I mean, and not knowing anything about, oh God, no, no, I'm not contacting these mother, especially not that one. We could look at the demands, not knowing anything about the Libertarian Party, not knowing anything about the Mises Caucus, and look at this and say, well, I'm for not one more penny for the war in Ukraine. I'm for negotiating peace. I'm for stopping the war. Inflation is not really inflation, it's price gouging, but okay. I'm for disbanding NATO. I'm for global nuclear de escalation. I'm for slashing the Pentagon budget. I'm for abolishing the CIA and the military industrial deep state. I'm for this. I'm for that. Although, if you understand the libertarians, this right here is like, what y'all even mean by that? But we're going to talk about it in a minute. I'm for this, but this is also a problem because when you see what the problem is with these people, you realize Julian Assange is the only political prisoner they ever talk about. It's like they don't think there are any other political prisoners that we need to mobilize and organize around to free them. They only ever talk about. Okay, so I hope you're kind of getting to where this is going and what the problem is. So, just looking at this list of demands, I'm like, I'm for all that. Yes, I think I can unite with these people. But if you compare those nice sounding words to the actual ideology of today's Libertarian Party, and particularly of the Mises Caucus that's gained control of it, something starts to smell kind of funny. So let me hip you to who these people are. Back in May of 2022, Reason Magazine published an article, and I'm going to share it with you, called The Mises Caucus, or Mises Caucus, Takes Control of Libertarian Party, in which they point out that the caucus got their candidate, Angela McArdle, elected to the chair of the National Libertarian Party with 69% of the voting delegates. The article points out that while McArdle was the Mises Caucus candidate, the behind-the-scenes mastermind of the campaign to get her there and to get her to win, was caucus founder, leader, this guy named Michael Heise, Heise. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Let me see where this is. Okay, yeah, this is where that is in the article. I hope you can see it well. I'm going to magnify it for you so you can see it. The caucus, the Mises Caucus's official platform is like typical libertarian stuff. Personal liberty, little to no federal government oversight, or no federal government at all, for that matter. No unconstitutional war. No federal regulation on guns. The primacy of private property, which has always screamed like capitalist greed to me, and has been a way for racists to find a home, the respectable racists, to find a home in the Libertarian Party this whole time. But the key to understanding the problem with the Mises Caucus isn't in what their platform says, it's in what the caucus members have said and done. Because even old guard libertarians say that too many of the Mises Caucus members are obnoxious bullies, and they're also often racist. Yeah, the libertarians even say this about these Mises Caucus folks who have taken over the party. And in this article, one of the first things that should have been a clue, it was a clue to me, about the problem with these folks was when Angela McArdle, the new president of the Libertarian, or chairperson of the Libertarian Party, said that the government response to COVID has left many working class Americans thirsty for personal liberty, and we don't want to ignore them. They have, she argued, low resolution views of freedom, and we need to bring that vision into focus by communicating our message clearly and by supporting our candidates and affiliates. Here's the thing, though. They're not talking about raising the issue that the U.S. government didn't provide any support for the people, didn't provide PPE, didn't provide wage guarantees, didn't provide guarantees that people would not lose their jobs, did not implement a nationwide mortgage and rent moratoriums. None of that. The government's only response was a lockdown-ish sort of type of thing and mandated vaccines. The government did absolutely nothing to take care of the people in the midst of a global pandemic. And these people aren't raising that issue. They're just mad because the government told people that they couldn't go to bars and go to their hair salon and get their hair done to keep people from passing the virus around and dying. Meanwhile, the working class and poor, mostly people of color who could not afford to lock down because they won't being paid nothing in the first place, had to continue to go to work, and they're the ones who died in droves. They're not bringing this up. They're not talking about that at all. They're talking about personal liberty. The government can't tell us what to do. That's it. Big old red flag right there. But if that's not enough, there's always more, isn't there? If that is not enough, how about, I hope I can transfer this without having to, is it working? Did it work? Did it work? I don't think it did. All right. So now I'm going to have to share this tweet. If that was not enough of a red flag for you, how about this tweet from high-level Mises Caucus member Jeremy Kaufman, who tweeted, as you can see, if 1,000 trans people were murdered every year, but there were no taxes, we'd live in a substantially more moral world. I'm not making this up. This is a real tweet. For reference, about 40 transgender people are murdered in the U.S. per year. Yeah. Mises Caucus member, very high-ranking Jeremy Kaufman. If that's not enough for you, where's the other one? Then there is this exhibit from right there, Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, a very influential social media messaging outlet, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire is. They tweeted on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Black people in America get special access to essential drugs, receive special federal funding due to race, and are first in line for every college and every job. America isn't in debt to Black people. If anything, it's the other way around. And this tweet was in response to Ida B. Wells, or the woman who is the creator of the 1619 Project, I believe, tweeting, missing something. It's obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. This wasn't even her quote, wasn't even her comment. She didn't come up with that. You know who did? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yes. So, Mises Caucus libertarians will tell you that, look, they're just carrying on Ron Paul's revolution, right? But what they've done in real life, other than, expose that they're racist transphobes, they've also succeeded in deleting the line from the Libertarian Party's longtime platform plank, condemning bigotry as irrational and repugnant. Those words used to be in there. Heiss says that the anti-bigotry condemnation fed what he called, now these are the libertarians now, what he called, quote, woke or cultural Marxist, a cultural Marxist agenda. He said, and I think this is in the article. So let me make sure I find it. I think now I'm gonna have to read it to you. But there is something else in this article that's connected to it. But so he said, what is happening nowadays with the wokeism is people are using language and dialectics rather, along cultural lines to push for collectivist ends. So back in the day, the Marxist revolutions, they had the dialectics of the rich versus the poor and the owner versus the worker. Ain't that what it is? And they were pushing towards collectivist ends. It's the same ideology that's happening now, but they're pitting, listen to this, cis versus straight, and male versus female, and trans versus whatever. Oh, so it's the old gay trans collectivist agenda trope. It's the gay socialists. Now it's the trans socialist agenda. Okay. What this article in Reason does point out that is attributed to Heiss is that a document of the internal Mises Caucus strategizing that began circulating before the convention in which the Mises Caucus won the chairmanship of the Libertarian Party, this internal document explicitly said, with reference to the plan to eliminate the line about bigotry being irrational and repugnant, that one of the major goals of the Mises Caucus is to make the Libertarian Party appealing to the wider liberty movement that is largely not currently here with us. That movement strongly, rejects wokeism and the word games associated with it. This, along with the deletion of the abortion plank. Oh, yeah, that's right. The other thing the Mises Caucus did, scroll up a little bit. At the time this article was written, they were planning to eliminate any mention of being pro-choice, which has always been a Libertarian Party position, and replace that current pro-choice plank that's pro-choice, and say that in essence, libertarians can differ in opinions based on when they think a protectable life begins. Well, that means that instead of the party of liberty and personal freedom and personal privacy protecting women's privacy rights, the right to access an abortion and not have it anybody's business, particularly the federal or state government, now they want to eliminate that and invite and welcome people in who want to take women's privacy rights away, who pretty much have done that at the federal level. This is what they've done already. So Heiss says that movement strongly rejects wokeism and the word games associated with it. I wonder which movement he is talking about. This, along with the deletion of the abortion plank, will display that there are serious cultural changes in the party that are more representative of that movement. And there was another article that I was reading today that was written a few months later after the convention, and these things were done. The Mises Caucus got rid of that language that said that bigotry is irrational and repugnant. They got rid of the pro-choice plank in the Libertarian Party. Yeah. So, and don't let me forget to share these articles with you. So Oh, this is a quote that the new Libertarian Party chairperson McCardle said about removing the party's pro-choice plank. She said it was called for, it was necessary, because abortion represents an irreconcilable difference within the libertarian movement, and they didn't want to keep alienating Trump and socially conservative voters. So if you didn't know who they were talking about bringing into their big libertarian tent, she just told you. She said, we tend to push out people who are a little bit more socially conservative. And I think that there's room in the party for people who are libertine and socially conservative. And I would like them to feel that way. Enough room in the party to protect women's right to privacy and bodily autonomy. And for the people who want to take it away from them, what the hell does that floor plan look like? What it look like? Because it ain't mathing. It's not. So what's happened with the Libertarian Party? There was a fracture, there was a schism. Old guard libertarians are angry at the Mises Caucus, coming right out and saying these people are racist, they're bullies, they're, these edgelord podcast comedian followers who are just nasty, nasty people. But interestingly enough, there has not been a mass exodus of old guard libertarian members, although some have left. Which reminds me of the way the old guard GOP responded when Trump won the nomination, and they talked about how they hated him so much. Oh, he's so repugnant. Donald Trump. Oh, he doesn't represent our values, but they stuck around in that party to partake in the power that Trump, and that they knew Trump would deliver for them. That's how I feel about these libertarians. Not like I had a lot of respect for them in the first place, sticking around now that the Mises Caucus, this far-right, alt-right, racist, transphobic Mises Caucus, anti-immigrant, they're anti-immigration too, has now taken control of the party. You hate these people, but they stuck around. Some members of the Libertarian Party, the old guard, have formed something called the Keystone Conference, as an alternative, but most people stayed because they're hoping that this tactic, this strategy by these folks in the Mises Caucus to appeal to these alt-right, these young white alt-right, right-wing, Trump supporting, right-wing adjacent voters who will go along with the anti-war stuff, but who honestly are tired of Black people talking about race. That's what this is. So this is why this Rage Against the War Machine rally is white as hell. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I want to stress a couple of things about the fallout from the Mises Caucus taking over the Libertarian Party within the party. A lot of members have not left, but the funders have. And that's very serious for the Libertarian Party, because significant donors to the Libertarian Party, people who have been financially supporting the party for decades, and some very, very significant donors left after the takeover in March 2022. The number of active donors to the Libertarian Party, including those major donors, had actually been falling for 7 straight months in the midst of this 4-year battle for control of the party between the old guard libertarians and the Mises Caucus. So there's that. The Libertarian Party is hurting for cash because they're respectable racists, and the dyed-in-the-wool old guard libertarians were turned off by the racist caucus, the racist Mises Caucus. And then of the libertarians who have left the party, they have made clear that it was because of the racism and the bigotry of the Mises Caucus members. One of these old guard libertarians, who's an elected official who quit her post in protest to the Mises Caucus takeover in New Hampshire, said, quote, We are a big tent party, but no tent is big enough to hold racists and people of color, transphobes and trans people, bigots and their victims. A libertarian said that about these Mises Caucus people taking over their party. She understands, and the libertarians who have left the party understand, that there is no unity that can be found between bigots and the people who they target with their bigotry. There's no unity. There's no unity of purpose that can be found there. If the libertarians can figure that out, please explain to me what is wrong with these so-called folks on, well, these folks on the so-called left. And now that we're talking about the folks on the so-called left who are speaking at this thing, let me just share that with you. Let's go. Oh, I do not want to get updates about this trash. Stop playing with me. I don't even want to talk about this person. I am just so over white so-called leftists being enamored with this man. Jesus Christ. These are the speakers. Uh-huh. You notice something? Mm-hmm. Oh, hey. Oh, wow. Uh-huh. This kind of cancels out because he's a whole Zionist. He's a whole all day long Zionist, okay? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is the whitest lineup of speakers for an anti-war rally I think I have ever seen in my life. I have not seen anything. I have not seen a speakers lineup so white. Oh, I did not mean to share that quote. Apologies. I meant to share the link to this Rage Against the War machine page. And while I'm at it, let me give you this Reason magazine article. There you go. Boop. For you, just for you. And the links to those tweets are in the article. So, what does this all mean? Here's the thing. Like I said before, I understand that there are going to come times when we are going to have to organize. And let me say let me personalize this. Where I am going to have to organize at some point with people I don't entirely agree with on every single thing. I'm cool with that. It's actually happened. And I've actually engaged in very principled but very intense struggle over ideas with comrades in the organizations that I belong to. I belong to more than one. I mean, I will fight with people in church. So, I'm not afraid to have a little principle struggle among comrades over some serious issues. So, okay, that's cool. And I'm cool with organizing with people whose political ideology in the most mainstream basic sense doesn't align with mine. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat and not let y'all's conversations and questions get away. I saw this. Charles, you must be from DC. Fam, Slim, thank you for the super sticker. Much appreciated, Charles. Thank you. Or maybe from Baltimore. Appreciate you. Really do. So okay. Yeah, you're going to have to organize with people you don't always agree with. There's going to be principal struggle over ideas. Not everybody understands concepts and ideology the same way. And okay, that's fine. That's cool. Because we're adults, right? We're all adults here. But where are the principles of unity do actual anti-imperialists actual anti-capitalist organizers, actual people-centered human rights organizers have with people whose very political ideology is the denial of human rights for some people, for people who are not like them, people who don't look like them, for people who don't live like them. How where's the principle of unity there? Because for me, y'all making a sister feel good, like I'm making some sense tonight. Thank you. I appreciate you, Anna Hart. I'm trying to make it make sense. I'm trying, because it don't be making sense. So I can't see the point of unity with these people. And I get from people on the leftish, the general nebulous left, only in the sense that they're not Republicans and they're not Democrats, right? That what I get in response to this criticism of this event, of the Libertarian Party in general, historically, and the Mises Caucus in particular, and what this event really is, the response that I get from a lot of white leftists is, well, this is why the left is so weak, because you have to organize with people that you don't agree with on things that are important. Yeah, generally that's true, but not on human rights, not on literal human rights, the right for people to exist and have equal rights across the board because they're human beings, and to not be discriminated against or harmed because of who they are. That's not a that's not something we compromise on, y'all. No, I'm sorry. Let me continue to personalize this and not project. That's not something I compromise on, y'all. It's not, ever. And I don't care if people have a problem with marginalized folks within the coalition that I organize with and on behalf of and for. I don't care how you feel about trans people. I don't care how you feel about queer people. Your little personal opinions don't mean anything to me, because the only thing that is important to me is that they are human beings and they deserve not to be discriminated against because of who they are, and they deserve to have the same human rights that I am fighting for myself. Full damn story, end, stop. Keep your little personal bigoted opinions about who they are to yourself, because it is immaterial to the struggle against this capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal, settler colonial system, and I should add ableist system, that we are fighting to destroy for all of our sakes. And this is the thing. We have always been fighting for everybody's life. We Black, brown, indigenous, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, people-centered human rights organizers, we have always been organizing for everybody's life to stop this system from killing everybody here and around the world. We've always been doing that. So here's my other problem with this little event. How come they didn't reach out to the people who've been doing this? If they want to expand their tent, if they want to grow their base, that's, really what this is about. It's not about actually being anti-war. These people couldn't give a damn if they came to your house, took your paycheck, took it to the bank, cashed it, mailed it to Volodymyr Zelensky himself. They don't give a damn. They are opportunists who are using this moment that should be an organizing moment where people on the amorphous leftish, whatever. Organize with the people who have been doing this work all our damn lives since day one. That's what should have happened. Regardless of what these people did, the response from white leftists should have been, well, we know people who have always been organizing against this. So we're going to build something with them and we're going to let them lead. Right? That's what we should do, because that they've been doing this. But no, you know why? And you know why they didn't? You know why they didn't? Here is an uncomfortable fact about too many white leftists, so-called leftists. I see you. Thank you, Lene. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much. Here's an uncomfortable fact. These little white leftists don't want black folk to be telling them what to do. That's what they do. Not want to take leadership from black organizers. They don't want to take leadership from brown organizers. They don't want to take leadership from indigenous organizers. They don't want to. No, they don't want the colored folks telling them how to be anti-war. They particularly don't want the colored folks telling them that they have to see race and class as inextricably linked, because they are. Capitalism doesn't continue to exist in the form that it has and metastasize in the way that it has without racism to keep it going and to keep convincing working class white people that even though you poor just like the Negroes, at least you're white. So we may not club you over the head with the cops, but we're not going to give you any more money either. So, so these folks, the Mises Caucus, now the Libertarian Party, organized this rally to shore up their base because they need the money. And they want to shore up their base not with an actual anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, people-centered, human rights focused organizers like myself and people who look like me and people who look like you. And no, they don't want to have anything to do with us. They want to attract, what the lady say, Trump voters and socially conservative voters. That's what she said. I didn't say it, she did. And these people are telling you right from the jump who they want to organize with. And what do these so-called white leftists do? Completely ignore the fact that these people have blatantly said, we want to expand our base to include racist ass Trump and socially conservative voters who want to marginalize further marginalized people. And these white leftists ignored all of that marginalization and said, yes, these are the ones who are going to save us from nuclear holocaust. Because that's the other rebuttal I get from white leftists. Well, we are facing an existential threat. We are, what is it, 10 seconds to no, not 90 seconds. We are 90 seconds to midnight, according to the atomic clock, closer to human-caused Armageddon than we have ever been before since the atomic clock has been tracking those things, clocking those things. This is what people have told me. And for people who have talked to me and who are watching, I'm not going to name names, I just want you to know you are not the only person who said this foolishness to me. So I'm not talking about you only. Several people have said this foolishness to me. Franny French, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. So these people have flat out said, we only want to broaden our tent with white people who don't like non-white people, who don't like people who live like them. That's the people we want to broaden our tent with. And we need to do something because all of our old guard members have left the party. And if the members didn't leave, the big money donors did. We got to do something. How do we do it? Oh, I know. Let's hold an anti-war rally, get a bunch of anti-war activists to come and speak and attract, get a bunch of podcasters who are part of this edgy, edgelord, comedic social commentary, who have a clear disdain for wokeism and identity politics. They'll get the people that we want to broaden our base with into our party. That's what this event is. It's not an actual anti-war rally. These people haven't organized shit. They ain't organized nothing. They have not built a point of unity with anybody who is not them. And this is the other thing that pisses me off about the people who are involved in this. Now, I have not been privy to the backstage, backdoor conversations between the speakers, all of the speakers, and the organizers. But I know that there were some principled anti-war organizers who did confront the organizers of this event and said, because I think they were invited to speak, and they said, I tell you what, we'll speak if you remove Jackson Hinkle, outspoken transphobe. If you remove Jackson Hinkle from the speakers list. And the organizers of this event said, no. So then the veteran organizers said, will you at least condemn hate speech and ensure that no hate speech will be spoken at the event? And at the time, the organizer said, fuck you, no. So the veteran anti-imperialist organizers, they were like, well, we can't do this. We're not going to do this because you will not betray your bigotry. You won't repudiate your bigotry when it's brought to you and it's challenged. And that is dangerous for the people I organize with. The working class and poor and oppressed and colonized people of color, indigenous people, African descended people all around the world, people in the global south, people in Haiti, people in the domestic colonies right here, trans people, queer people, disabled people. You won't repudiate the bigotry from those in your caucus and the harm that means for the people I organize with. I'm not speaking at your bullshit conference. Fuck you, bunch of racists. He didn't actually say that. That's just my commentary. I wish he had said that. Thank you so much. Fred Hampton is my hero. He mine too. For real, all day, every day, 24/7. And I think there were conversations like that with some people, but here's what I know didn't happen. I have not seen a major challenge by these folks who are on this panel. Where's the challenge to these people? If you want me to speak on this at this event, you got to do something about these racists and bigots and transphobes and women hating folks. and you got to do something about that. Otherwise, nope. But that didn't happen. So why should the Libertarian Party and the Mises Caucus change anything about who they are, what they're about, and what they want when there are plenty of white folks on the left who will give them the legitimacy that they are looking for to do it? And these very same white people coming, well, not those same white people. Let me clean that up because I don't want anybody coming after me. That I'm ill. I'm disabled. I can't take that stress. But the white people who have challenged me on my position have said, We have to have unity. We have to build unity. You want me to compromise my principles and build unity with people who you won't even challenge to deal with theirs, to deal with their fucked up, dangerous ideology. And you want to do that because you think aligning, me compromising my principles and aligning with these people, giving them validity, that's the salvation of the human race, these racist white people. And these people never ever ask themselves, they have not asked themselves, what would happen? Let's just play this whole thing out. What would happen if this event is pulled off? And I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of people there, but let's just say it all works out and it comes off, it's a smashing success. Thousands of people show up. Libertarian Party now, new life breathed into it. It is a legitimate force in politics, and somehow, because of the bullshit agenda of the Democrats, the neocons with a D in front of and behind their name, and that's including the black ones and the progressive ones, and the overt hatred and racism of the Republicans, that there's an inroad for the Libertarian Party to actually gain some political power. Did you know that in some states, libertarians have won a lot of state and local races? And they have now committed to not run libertarian candidates against Republican candidates in races where they like the Republican candidate. So the possibility of this Libertarian Party gaining power, it's not a pipe dream, because that's already happened on the local level, at the state level. So these people who are talking about we need to avoid nuclear Armageddon, so yes, we need to align with the racists because they're anti-war. Aside from them obviously not knowing a damn thing about the actual Libertarian Party, these people don't give a shit about ending war. They want to make sure capitalism remains in place so they can protect their private property, so they can have all white neighborhoods with their private police forces. And as long as the war is constitutional and voted on by Congress, they cool with that shit. Come on now. But the very people who say this to me, we need to align with anybody to stop this possible nuclear war, they never think about what these people will do if they actually gain power. Because that's what this is about, them gaining more political power and using a weak left and an unprincipled faction of white folks on the so-called left to help them do it. So what are they going to do when they gain power? I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to do exactly what the people who they are broadening their base with want to do. They're going to do exactly what the GOP is doing right now. They like that. And they've blatantly told you that is what they're going to do. That's their platform. That's what they're going to do if they gain power. They're going to do us. And it doesn't matter how much you say to these white leftists that aligning with these people in any way is dangerous to people who ain't them, and ultimately dangerous to them too, because there's this delusion among some on the left, or the white left, that they can somehow, I don't know, somebody told me we can drown out the crazies. First, they think that these people are not that serious. They think they're just a bunch of whack jobs and nut jobs and kooks, and we can just dismiss them. And yeah, that sounds familiar. That's one thing these white leftists do. When we tell them that there is a danger ahead, they dismiss it like we making shit up. Guess what, y'all? That's racist. That's racist. Mm-hmm. John Breen, thank you so much. Thank you. I try, man. I do. I try. So I know I get carried away with the emotions and the cuss words, but I try to keep it principled. I try to stay on point. So that's the one thing they do. You know, they dismiss our warnings like we're just making stuff up. That's racist. And then they say, well, these people aren't that serious, you know, or we can change their minds. Somebody actually sent me an email today and told me we can drown out the nut jobs. How are you going to drown out the people who organize this thing when you wouldn't even challenge them? Not even in public. You wouldn't even challenge them in private on their bigotry. Get the heck out of here. What the hell you think it take me for? There's that. And then they come with the gaslighting. Well, the reason the left can't grow is because of identity politics and, you know, this ideological purity and for human rights. Fuck yeah. I'm ideologically pure on human rights. And that keeps me from organizing with people who don't want all human beings to have the same rights. It just really does. Call me an ideologically pure fool. But I'm really not going to organize with people who, once they get power, I know they're going to turn around and point that power at me to my detriment. They told you that's what they're going to do. But these white folks don't believe them. They believe they can talk some sense into these kids. They're just misguided kids, and we can talk some sense into them. How are you going to talk some sense into these people when you won't even not repeat lies about Dr. Gerald Horne, not talking about class, when you haven't read shit that the man has written, but you just keep repeating these racist lies that these little Trotskyite white people who have also not read anything he's written say about he only talks about race, he doesn't talk about class. Some of these white leftists hate talking about racism, race, white supremacy so much that they will repeat a lie about a black radical intellectual historian rather than point out, you know, y'all are wrong about this. He actually talks about both, and it's important to set the record straight because there is no capitalism without racism. Capitalism, racism, like this, class, race. Yeah, you gonna challenge the. I need wine. I need wine. So I've been holding on to this for a couple of days because I have been assessing the situation, seeing how it plays out, finding the right words to say, finding the appropriate way to say it. And I don't know, maybe this wasn't the most appropriate way to say it, but it's my show, so I may say things however I choose. But I will more formally put these thoughts down in an article. Talked about it today on By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik. For those of you who don't know, I'm the co-host of By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik with Sean the Voice Blackman. 105.5 FM, 1390 AM in the Washington, D.C. area from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time each weekday. And you can also hear our shows from the previous day on sputniknews.com/radio. Scroll on down the page, click on the By Any Means Necessary tab, hear all of our shows. We had a really great interview yesterday with Johnny Miller, who is in Donetsk. He is a reporter for Press TV. And we talked to him for the first hour of the show, and he gave us an on-the-ground account of what it's really like in Donetsk in the Donbass region in Ukraine. Fantastic interview, one of many. I'm working on getting the young comrades from Howard University on the show next week to talk about the planned demonstrations that these young Black anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, people-centered, human rights focused activists and organizers are working on in opposition to the $90 million contract given to not just Howard University, but 10 HBCUs by the Department of Defense. Yep, hoping to get them on next week. So there's a lot going on. I've been holding on to this for a lot because for a minute because I wanted to make sure that I was able to articulate all of the problems with this alliance that white leftists have once again just insisted that we had to enter into to save humanity. But the same people will not organize with folks who have been doing this work, who look like me and you and our kin. And that's a big old problem. So, of course, this means that this calls into question whether these folks are left. It also exposes the racism that some of these people who are supporting this thing don't want to confront. Remember, we can be in coalition if you got messed up ideas, but you're going to have to confront them and repudiate them and see the error of your ways. Repent. None of that's happening. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm saying everything I had to say. Oh, yeah. Let me say this. If the organizers of this event, excuse me, had at some point looked at their speakers list and said, "Man, that is mighty white. Wow, we need some color up in here. Can we reach out to some Black organizations and get some Black anti-war people to speak, more than one? That's a lot of white folks. Oh my God, that looks really bad." And even if they had reached out to a formation like the Poor People's Campaign, hell, I hate to say it, but even if they had reached out to damn Black Lives Matter or whatever, at least it would have been seen as an effort to not be so blatantly, obviously, I don't care what you think about it, racist. But they didn't. So I'm not even sitting here advocating that these people had to reach out to people I organize with. No, that's not what this is about at all. I'm not sitting here, crushing sour grapes because they didn't reach out to BAP, because we dealt with that when we saw it. We were like, perhaps not. And this is before we even realized all the details. But again, that's BAP business. This is me, Jacqueline, talking. I'm not even sitting here saying that they should have reached out to the organizations that I know that I organize with. If they had reached out to any Black folks who were anti-war, it would have looked less bad. Even if the politics of those folks wasn't entirely on the up and up, wouldn't have looked as bad. But they did not. Because as the new chairman of the Libertarian Caucus, Libertarian Party told you, they want to broaden their base with socially conservative Trump voters and the young white, mostly men, but some women too, who like these, edgelord, anti-woke, anti-ID Paul podcasters. That's who they said they want in their party. And to be clear, I'd probably said it like 4 or 5 times, but the Libertarian Party has never been anti-capitalist. They are not anti-capitalist. They have never been. They like capitalism just fine. They really love private property, so they have no problem with the police. They want police to protect their private property from the unwashed masses. They don't like socialism at all. That's what that collectivism word that Heist was using. That's what he meant: socialism, communism. They view Marxism and socialism exactly the same way that the GOP does. That's why they're using the same language to talk about Marxism and socialism that the GOP does. And honestly, they feel the same way about it that the Democrats do. So I don't know, y'all. I don't know what kind of principles people have that they would so easily sell out Black, brown, indigenous, immigrant, disabled, queer, trans, anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, people-centered human rights organizers, and people in general, in order to be so obsessed with building a movement with these people. I don't know what kind of principles they have that they don't have a problem doing that, but it looks like racism to me. And that's not something I'm going to ascribe personally to each person who's speaking. But a lot of these white folks who have said to me that I am wrong for standing on my principles and calling this mess what it is, and that we who do this are the reason the left can't organize. Nah, man. You are the reason the left can't grow. You and your affinity, your obsession for needing to organize with the right, but refusing to challenge their ideology to protect us. We're the ones who are supposed to give up our principles, but they don't have to give up anything for you to be convinced that we're supposed to be dragged kicking and screaming to organize with a bunch of racists. We're the ones who have to swallow our pride and our dignity and our self-determination, put that on the back burner so that you can feel good about organizing with the racists who you haven't challenged to change anything about what they believe in regard to us. That math don't math, fam. And there is not any amount of gaslighting that any of my white left colleagues can do, talking about we need to stop nuclear war. This is the only opportunity we have to do it. It didn't have to be the only opportunity you have to do it. As a matter of fact, hold on. Wait a minute. Let me find this thing real quick. As a matter of fact, it's not the only opportunity we have to do it. I want to make sure you don't see the person who emailed me this. I don't like debates and public call outs. I don't really do that to people. That's not my thing. I'm sick. I don't need no more stress. This is stressful enough. This stopped the Rage Against the War Machine rally. Oh, and by the way, I don't think I mentioned that I hate the fact that they played on a little play on the Rage Against the Machine. That's just. But that's not the only opportunity for us to organize with people who want to end this war in particular and war in general. And to organize with people who have been doing it, and to not just find unity with people, but to be in organization with working class, poor, and oppressed, colonized, Black, brown, indigenous, queer, trans, disabled, and other marginalized people who are doing the organizing, who are leading the organizing. Here's another opportunity for you. Answer Coalition. And if you didn't know, ANSWER is an acronym for Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. On the 20th anniversary of the U.S. invasion of Iraq, there will be a rally for peace in Ukraine, Stop the U.S. War Machine. March 18th at the White House, there will be actions across the country March 18th and 19th, protest on the 20th anniversary of the U.S. invasion of Iraq, anti-coalition Code Pink, the People's Forum. Formation with people of color in the organization, in leadership in the organization, formation, people of color, queer, trans, disabled people in the organization, in leadership of the organization. They've been doing this a long time. March 18th, 1 o'clock, the White House. What y'all doing on March 18th? Since this bullshit on February 19th, since y'all think, oh, that's the only opportunity we have to stop this war, it's not. And it never was. So I'm gonna drop this in the chat. Make sure I can get it. Woo, make sure I can get it without exposing the email, the email of the person who sent that to me. Woo, because I don't want to start a whole nother. Ooh, Lordy. There you go. So there you go, y'all. That's my stuff. So I have talked so very much, and I want to go back to answer the question that was asked earlier. Is working class solidarity the kind of organizing across racial and class lines? Is that possible? Well, racial lines at least. Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. I mean, I see it all the time in organizations like Answer and the People's Forum, and I see it all the time. It is possible. The key is white people have to be comfortable with demanding of white people who have a problem dealing with race that they have to deal with their racism problem. That has to be the demand. And I mean, we're always going to make the demand, but the white people that we organize with, it is really their responsibility to make that demand of their white comrades, or of white people who want to organize with them, who could become comrades, because that is how you become a comrade. You organize for unity, and you throw away anything that keeps you from being a comrade to the person you're organizing with. Comradeship is deeper than friendship. There is some responsibility with comradeship. If I call people comrade, I expect something from them. I know they expect something from me. That is as it should be. So I think it can happen. It's just going to take work. It is happening. It's just going to take work, and more work. And there are going to be a whole lot of people who we're going to have to leave behind, white and black. Because it's black folks. I mean, let's be serious. It's black folks who do not want to commit class suicide. They don't. And we're going to have to leave them behind. We ain't rooting for everybody black up in here. Okay, let me see let me see how far I can go up and see what you all had to say before we call it a night. I really hope that you learned something, that you realize something that you didn't know about this Stop the War Machine, Rage Against the War Machine rally. I hope you learned something about the libertarians that you didn't know, and the Mises Caucus. And I hope you think differently about what it means to pursue unity in organizing spaces. It's not just something that you do because we like the same thing or we agree on the same thing. It is so much deeper than that, and it has to be. It has to be. The movement, the mass movement that we need to bring about the socialist revolution that will free us all, because that's what we're organizing toward. A revolution of the proletariat based on scientific socialism, for the freedom, liberation, and people-centered human rights of all people around the world. That's what we're organizing toward. Libertarians don't want that. The right wing doesn't want that. Democrats don't want that. Why would we be concerned with aligning with any of those people who don't want the future that we want and that we so desperately need? Why would we do it? So, all right. Always appreciate my comrade Ricky Ryan, whose analysis is never dull. You understand me? You hear me? Ricky Ryan's analysis is that there are people I am in organization with who I learn from every day. And I mean, sharp. There are times when I will not make a comment on something until I see what they have to say to make sure my stuff is right. And Ricky is one of those people. She said they think about it all the time when it comes to Africans, which is why many are slower to unite under our leadership. They really do not want to be told what to do by us. They really don't. They may have a hard time admitting that to themselves, but come on, we know what that is. We've been living with that all our lives. Thank you, Breaking Ground. Thank you for this important, nuanced political analysis. I got a thing with the word nuance, but okay, I know what you mean. It's a compliment. Thank you. Many people don't understand the history of a white supremacist-led libertarianism in the U.S. They move stealth. Yo, they do. You notice how Ron Paul, when he would do his speeches, he would never talk about racial issues. He would never talk about police terrorism. He certainly never talked about imperialist wars against Black and brown countries and people in particular. And he didn't talk to student groups. He didn't talk to student groups because students were more likely to be in tune to those issues than the old folks were. So he stuck to who his audience was. And yeah, so they're stealth like that. And they knew they always had those polite racists in their midst, but they cover that with this focus on liberty, personal freedom, liberty, freedom from government. All that is freedom from the government enforcing equal rights for all people. That's really what that means. They need to finish the sentence. Okay. Let's see. What else do you all have to say? This is interesting. And this is, I love you guys in the chat because I learned something from you very often too. They're the same people who stole the term in the first place. Libertarianism used to mean anarchism, and I did not know that. Thank you for telling us that, Black Nito. Appreciate it. Oh, let's see. That's all I know how to do. When I finally do punch, it is up. I have a hard time punching down when I know we're already under the boot. This is a great point. Fred Hampton, as my hero said, they love to say that the racists are in the minority. They are gaslighting for the fascists. That they're gaslighting us, these white leftists are gaslighting us on behalf of the fascists and the racists. Amazing. Amazing. Wild time to be alive, y'all, and to be an organizer. It's a wild time to be alive. I saw Jared Ball in here, Dr. Jab, and I can't find his comment now because I think he asked a question and I don't want to miss it. Rats. I love these talks where you guys have as deep a conversation in the chat as I'm having on the show. So I really appreciate that. This is interesting. Christine Park said libertarians came out to the Occupy camps and did work too, but they expected everyone to become libertarian and just couldn't understand why not. Amazing. Why don't people want to be closet polite racists? And let me see. When we tell white people to organize their own, it means struggle with those ideas, not unite with them. Y'all have read the memo. If people are really like not doing this intentionally and really just don't know what they're doing, what have I done wrong that you're so angry at me? You have read the memo wrong. You have completely not heard anything we said and don't understand what we mean when we said that you need to organize your people. That does not mean go join them. That means help them struggle with their racial issues. Get that straight. Help them repudiate. Oh. Oh, this is the thing I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. Thank you, Lene. Thank you for the sticky and reminding me. You know what this whole mess reminds me of? 2018. The United National Anti-War Conference in Richmond, Virginia, when Ajamu Baraka was asked to facilitate a workshop for people of color, raising the contradictions of the military-industrial complex as it operates in people, in communities of color, in particular. Things like struggling with people and raising their consciousness about what JROTC programs really are in high schools and why they're mostly in high schools in poor Black and brown neighborhoods. What ROTC is on college campuses, and why they're more prevalent on HBCUs and the scholarships they give and that kind of thing. The poverty draft and what this means for working class and poor, mostly Black and brown communities who are conditioned to see service in the military as a way to get things that should be human rights for all of us: housing, healthcare, and an education. So Ajamu was requested by UNAC leadership, I believe, to facilitate this conference for the attendees who were African descended and otherwise people of color, colonized people, marginalized people. Two white women who were big in the online progressive movement. And now is the time when I'm going to name names. I'm going to do it now. Claudia Stauber and Debbie Luzignan, who has just passed away. But these two women basically attempted a takeover of the UNAC conference with their huge alt-right following. This was after the Bernie Sanders campaign. And then all of a sudden, all of these young white progressive leftists who were Bernie supporters were like, oh, these people on the right wing, they liked Bernie's platform too. So we can unite with them. Let's have a left-right alliance. And I think some people called it like a red-brown alliance. Or like, if that, and I never understood what that meant. I always thought that it meant like red for socialism, communism, brown for brown shirts. And if it did, what the fuck? Are you serious? But yeah, so these people, and I was there on the day that the big thing happened, but I was not there on the day that Claudia Stauber, very white lady, very blonde, went on her platform after the first day of the workshop to accuse Ajamu Baraka of being a racist because she claimed he did not allow her and Debbie, who was also white, into the workshop. Well, yes, and by the way, if you don't know who Ajamu Baraka is, he's African. He's an African. But these white women accused him of being white. They said that the workshop was accused him of being racist. They said that the workshop was racist. They said that UNAC was racist for holding a blacks only workshop. And that was othering right-wing anti-war people who might have wanted to participate too. They actually said these things. They said them. So I heard about this because someone called me and asked me, hey, are you at the UNAC conference? And I said, no, I didn't go today, but I'm going to go tomorrow. And they said, well, I think you need to know about this. And they tell me, they point me to Claudia's live stream on her page. And I'm looking at it, and I had met her before. I was part of this thing called Real Progressives. More bones that are buried. Let's leave them there for now. So I'd worked with her before, and you know, the white leftists, they just loved themselves some Claudia. They just thought she was the best thing in the world. And I'm doing my live streams like, yeah, Bernie's cool and everything, but you know, this stuff is not going to solve racism, right? You know that if we get some universal health care, the racial disparities in health delivery, they're going to still exist. So we're still going to need to do them. So I didn't get as much traction and support in that blogosphere as the white folks who were talking about, oh, class. Yes, it's a class issue. It's a class issue. And if we get these universal programs, then racism is solved and we don't have to deal with it anymore. Yeah, so you get that. Okay. So Claudia knew who I was. She had met me several times before. We worked kind of in the same sphere for the same outlet at the 2016 Democratic National Convention. Yes, ma'am. This was that whole thing. And this thing went on for years. It went on for years. These people dragged this mess out. But okay, let me go back. They was, and they fitting to be sick of my black ass again. I hope they are. So, channeling Mr. Luke Mon right there. That was his favorite saying. Like, hey, I think they mad at you. He's like, oh yeah? Well, I hope they gonna be mad at my big black ass some more. So Claudia Stauber knew who I was. We had worked together at the DNC convention in 2016. I don't think I had met Debbie Luzignan once, but not, you know, to have like never really had a conversation or whatever with her. She was always kind of standoffish to me. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I'm watching this live stream that this woman is doing, Claudia Stauber, and where she is saying that Ajamu Baraka is a racist and he wouldn't let her into the workshop. And UNAC is racist and the workshop was racist because white people shouldn't be excluded, blah, blah. I'm sitting there looking at this thing going, what the entire... And then I'm looking at the comments, and I mean, hundreds of people are viewing this thing. And all of these white people are agreeing with this woman. All of these white Bernie stands. And they are agreeing with her. And then I'm reading through the comments, and I realize that some of these people are like a right wing, because they would say things like, well, this is why we on the right, we don't fuck with this race, you know, race first. No, this is just a distraction from the class issue that, right? So I go the next day, which is a Sunday. And look, y'all, I'm built the way I am. For those of you who have never seen me in person or seen a full size picture of me, the Lord God blessed me with an ample bosom. I guess God was like, yeah, a little bit extra, oops. Oh, crap. Well, it's there now. All right. She'll be all right. So it was hot. It was summertime. I had a t-shirt on, my leggings or whatever. And I'm sitting there at the conference in the general session, in the last plenary session. There was a question and answer part of the thing. I see Debbie and Claudia sitting in the front row. I'm sitting a few rows back. And I thank people for for having a focus on being intentional in bringing in more people of color into the UNAC space, into the anti-war organizing. I'm like, this is great, because this is what we need to be doing. This is the kind of organizing we need. Really appreciate it. This is a fantastic conference. Thank you for making the effort. That I said, at the public comment part, something like that, took my bosoms back onto my seat and sat myself and my bosoms down. And because my bosoms are the way they are, it's like I can't sit there and like cross my arms, because then it looks like I got and I was heavier then than I am now, so it was just a mess, y'all. So I'm just sitting there with my bosoms. And I think I had an arm on the other chair or something or other like that. But I'm sitting there in the audience, me and my bosoms, watching these two white women take turns at the mic, live streaming themselves, challenging UNAC to stop othering right-leaning voices by excluding them from conversations, like they did with the workshop that Ajamu Baraka led. That is othering language. And if they really want to grow UNAC, they need to unite with their 10,000 supporters, a lot of whom have come from the right wing in support of Bernie Sanders' platform. Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, could never be called anti-war in any real sense, and sure as hell has never been anti-imperialist. These two white women got up at the microphone and live streamed themselves saying that to UNAC. And I am sitting there in this audience looking at these two women, and I'm saying to myself, what the hell is going on? Now, mind you, I am looking at Claudia because we know each other. And this chick, we had talked earlier in the day, like, hey, Claudia, how you doing? Oh, hi, Jackie, because she's Swedish. Hi, Jackie. I think she's Swedish. She's either Swedish or German. Hi, Jackie, how are you? Hi, it's so good to see you. Hi. No, I'm Black. So she had any concerns about anything that went on at the conference that other Black people did, not like we all know each other, because all Black people do not know each other. We are not all related. Actually, yes, we are all related. We're all related. Yes, we are. But she didn't say anything to me about, and I'm actually like naively sitting there waiting for her to say, you know what, yesterday was kind of funny, and I'm wondering if I can talk to you about it. I hope you don't mind, but I just kind of felt uncomfortable with something. I wonder if I can I just bounce some stuff off you. So, when she goes on about her business with her little friend Debbie, I'm like, oh, there's some slick shit right here. I don't know what these two are doing, but they up to something. And I couldn't figure out what it was, but I'm like, they up to something. And then the public comment part happens. And then I say what I say, go back to my seat, hanging out. Then they say what they say, and I'm like, oh, this is I see what this is. Oh, they're trying to carry off this left-right alliance bullshit by bringing in these right-wing bigots who just happen to like Bernie, so that makes them okay. And they think they're going to take over UNAC with these people. That's what they were trying to do. And discredit Ajamu Baraka and Black folks in the movement in the meantime, to appease the right-wing white bigots. That was a part of their 10,000 member audience. That's what that was. So I am on the dramatic side. I am. When I get in my bag, y'all know how I am. I come with the dramatics. You know I do. Because this is a great story. And it's just, I love telling a good story. So I don't say anything at first. And thank y'all so much for hanging with me for a whole 2 hours. Bless y'all. I love y'all. I don't say anything at first. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I reached out to Ajamu, asked him what he had to say about it. And Ajamu had what he had to say. I'm not going to tell, you don't need to. Yeah. I reached out to my friend Phil Willeto, friend and comrade Phil Willeto, who was on the steering committee, I think, of UNAC at the time. Asked him what he thought about it. Had he heard about it? He had, and he was livid. He was just, Phil is a tall white dude, and he was just like, we did a video call, and he was like red. And his wife Anna is an African descended lady, and she was like, these little white girls don't have any business telling Black people how to organize and who to. Oh, it was delicious, and it was beautiful, and it was lovely, and it was solidarity. It was unity. So then the Facebook messages started happening. The Facebook messages from Claudia Stauber supporters and Debbie Luzignan supporters and the progressive podcasters who caught wind of the story and started to weigh in on which side they were on. Were Debbie and Claudia wrong and were being racist? Were Debbie and Claudia right? And was Ajamu Baraka and UNAC racist? These people in the progressive progressive sphere would have these white women on their shows lying about what happened at the workshop. Because remember, oh shoot, I gotta stop talking because I had to watch that. Claudia said that she wasn't allowed into the workshop, that no white people were allowed into the workshop. How about the video? There was video. The workshop was videoed. It was videotaped by a member of the then pretty new Black Alliance for Peace. Black Alliance for Peace was kind of new back then, at that time. And then different kind of narratives start to come out from Claudia. That first it was that white people couldn't be in there. They weren't allowed in at all. Then she said that she was in and that she wasn't allowed to live stream. Then it was she wasn't allowed to ask questions, that white people weren't allowed to speak. So then the person who did the video taping, and it was a closed video, it was not a live stream, because you know what? Black people have a right to organize with whoever we want, however we want. We have that right. That's called self-determination. And it's called protection from people like Claudia Stauber and Debbie Luzignan and their online troll army. So the person who did the videoing reached out to me, and that person was none other than Julie Veragis. If you've ever met Julie, you'll understand that when Claudia said that they wouldn't let me live stream, a Black woman had to live stream. So Julie sends me the video, and I see not only a random white dude sitting in the room in the workshop, but I also see Claudia Stauber sitting her blonde white ass right up front, right in front of Ajamu Baraka. Not only is she up front, but she's asking questions. And she asked a question that was not related to the conversation that Ajamu was having. So Ajamu politely and deftly and diplomatically dismissed her question. We're not talking about that right now, sister. I appreciate your question, but that's not the conversation at hand. We want to continue to focus on boop, boop, boop. We get the video, and that's when I decide, okay, I see what this is. Now I'm going to make some statements. So I do a show, and I debut the video. And by then, I'm getting hateful messages from these people and their supporters, their friends, their followers. And then Claudia does a follow-up video and says, and on one of the videos, one of the follow-up videos she did, I was on that live stream. So I dropped a question in the chat and said, Claudia, don't you think you are stepping out of line and going too far by calling Ajamu racist when it's clear that it's not true that white people were not allowed into the workshop? I have the video to prove that's not true. You were there and you asked questions. So don't you think you are being unfair? And I'm trying to be diplomatic. Even as people are in her chat calling me racist and other names, all outside the name my mama gave me. And Claudia's response was to see that the comment was from me and said, well, Jackie, I saw you sitting in the audience. I mean, your posture was very aggressive. And I'm sitting there looking at her saying this like, what posture was aggressive? And that's when I was like, these women are racist pigs. Them, all they followers, all they friends, and all of these progressive podcasters who had shows and brought those women on and took their side. They never talked to us. They never talked to me. One or two platforms may have reached out to a Noah Changa, and she got dragged into this because all of this happened like right before Charlottesville, I think. And it was that torchlit march. And Anoa raised the issue that march was reminiscent of the Nazis' march during Kristallnacht. That's what it was. And Caitlin Johnstone responded, and I think this was a tweet exchange that they had or a Facebook exchange. And Caitlin Johnstone responded saying that we should just dismiss these people. They're just a bunch of clowns with tiki torches. Why are we making such a big deal about this? This is the problem with the left. We focus too much on things that don't matter. These are clowns. We should ignore them. And we all see how that worked out. But then there were conversations had about why you don't ignore these people. They're not clowns. You don't dismiss them. You don't ignore them. They're not going away. And you cannot reason with them, and you sure as hell don't organize with them. But these were the people that these folks were saying that we could organize with to grow the Bernie Sanders movement, to have a left-right alliance. This happened in 2018, and this hatred, this vitriol from these so-called leftist white people, this shit went on for months. And a Ajamu Baraka supporter who ran a Facebook page, Ajamu Baraka for President, turned the page into Ajamu, and Ajamu is a racist page. And this dude came out with all kinds of evil, vile, racist vitriol against Ajamu Baraka and me and Noah. A lot of people like Jimmy Dore, Real Progressives. That's why I left Real Progressives, because at the end of the day, they believe those white chicks. Real Progressives, a whole bunch of white progressive podcasters who made their bones doing, Bernie's commentary during the Bernie Sanders movement. All those people took those women's side. Tim Black. Oh, I said white, right? Didn't I? Yeah. Not all white. And even among the people who didn't full-heartedly, full-throatedly say, I agree with you all, that was racist. Even those people, and there were usually, Black folks who were like, well, okay, maybe it wasn't racist, but I see your point. Nobody should be excluded. No, there ain't no point. There is no point to be seen. There are no two sides to this issue. You have no right to tell Black people who we can and cannot organize with and how, especially when you and your white ass is chasing after racists to organize with them, telling us that we had better follow you. The hell out of here. for years, fam. Those people, wherever we were, if we were a speaker on a panel at an event, if we did our own shows online, if we posted something online, these people would find me and a Noah and a couple of other people, and they would post the most hateful, disgusting, racist garbage. And this went on for years. And I'm not sure what eventually made it die down. But eventually they didn't go away, but the harassment stopped. But this situation reminds me of that. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Which says to me that white people don't learn nothing from nothing. That only happened in 2018. And they're still chasing after this left-right alliance and telling us that we're supposed to go for it. And if we don't, then it's our fault the left can't grow. It's our fault that nuclear Armageddon happens. No, Bama, it's your fault because you'd rather organize with racists than to organize with us. So that's what I got for tonight, y'all. I kept y'all long enough. I need to go hop over and see what Dr. CBS is talking about. I appreciate you so much. I'm going to go through your comments later on, and maybe in another show, we'll do a little follow-up. But I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight on People's Power Hour. That's 2 hours now. Stay tuned. Who the hell knows what's going to happen next? But definitely plan to be somewhere with the true anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, people-centered human rights organizers on March 18th and 19th. Be there or forever hold your peace. All right, y'all. As always, be good to yourselves and each other. Luta continua. The struggle continues, but I promise you, if you keep struggling, Victoria acerta. Victory is certain. Peace.